Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the DC Capstone Report. It's great again to be back with you today. Coming off of a great victory against the Georgia Bulldogs. Alabama had a great victory Saturday night, and we look forward to reviewing that game today and then looking forward to the upcoming game against Tennessee. Thank you all for tuning in. This podcast is brought to you each week. At this time, we try to do it. Lance and I get together and get this going every week, and I just want to appreciate Lance Shores for all the work he does on the websites and making sure that the production is done well, and for all of you who tune in to listen to what we have to say about Alabama football. It's just amazing to me the number of people who tune in each week to listen. So I want to thank all of you for what you do. Well, we're going to start today in our first segment. We're going to review the Georgia game. In our second segment, we're going to take a look at the standout players from the game. And then in our third and final segment today, we're going to preview the upcoming game against the University of Tennessee. You're listening to the DC Capstone Report. The DC Capstone Report is featured each Tuesday morning on the Martin Houston Show at Tide 100.9. You can listen live at Tide100.9.com. Well, here in the first segment, we're going to take a review of the Georgia game. Well, it was a great game. I hope everyone got an opportunity to see it and watch it on television. It was in prime time on CBS, and a great game that was played by Alabama all around, and just feel like we came into that game with some really good opportunities, and I thought we matched up well against Georgia going into the game. I predicted that we'd win the game 31-21. I was close in my prediction. We came out a victory of 41-24. And I believe we improved on defense. I think we even improved in some of the schematic things on offense. And we had so many players that had great games in this game. One thing I want to take a look at first is look at the defense. I think on the defensive side of the ball, a lot of improvement was made. And I believe that improvement came in the form of film study and being able to be ready for the Georgia game. In this Georgia game, and it showed up early in the first half, it appeared that we had the film study had shown a glitch in the quarterback from Georgia's throwing motion when he threw over the middle. Stetson Bennett liked to throw over the middle, and it looked like that he's based on his height, he had a hard time of getting the ball across the middle from the linemen who were holding their hands up in previous games. And it looked like that Alabama concentrated on that in the first half, and I really believe that it caused a lot of interruption and disruption in the flow of the game every time he would throw over the middle. I believe he got frustrated later in the game. But if you watch Christian Barmore and DJ Dale, both our middle rushers, when they were rushing, if they couldn't get to the quarterback, they would throw their hands up. And I think that throwing of the hands up really thwarted a lot of the passing over the middle. So that was a key, I think, and that came from film study. It's great to see this defense make some adjustments by watching the film and then see them execute it on the field. Now, a lot of folks say, hey, giving up 24 points in the first half is a lot, but I really believe that they really had a good first half. There was only one really blown play, and that was when we put a linebacker on a fast running back out of the backfield. He really couldn't keep up with the running back, and it should have been a different look on that one. We should have put a safety or a star player on that matchup. So that was really the only blown play. I think we improved by our play on the middle line, our front seven, in rushing the ball. We improved some. In statistically holding them on their first downs, we held them on some of their passing plays as well, and really had some great individual team efforts. So overall defense in the first half, I think we improved. In the second half, I was so impressed with the adjustments that we made in the game, and to shut Georgia out in the second half. I think our defense really stepped up to the plate. So I know I've been tough on our defense this year, and I wanted to go ahead and start this podcast off in the first segment in reviewing the Georgia game to give them credit where credit is due. I think some adjustments were made at halftime that helped us hold Georgia to no points in the second half, and that was instrumental in the Alabama victory, the way our defense played. Another thing on the defense that seemed to work was we weren't afraid to change schematically to move to more of a zone instead of a man-to-man at times. And so I think that really helped us as well. I don't think Georgia was prepared for that, and that helped us overall in the defensive scheme of things. Well, on the offensive side of the ball, Sarkisian called a great game. I said early on I thought we matched up well against Georgia. I think Georgia came in and they wanted to impose their will on Alabama as being the number one defensive team in the nation. I think Alabama accepted that challenge, and they wanted to go in and impose their will on Georgia as being the number one offensive team in the nation. And as we've seen in this particular game, offense bettered the defense. And Alabama has such a slew of playmakers, which starts from our offensive line and blocking and doing their assignments and realizing when we go up against a slugfest in a game like Georgia that you may lose a play, but you forget about that and try to win the next play. And that's what I saw the Alabama offense doing. The offensive line competed on every play, for every yard, for every protection. And when they made a mistake, they didn't let that get in their head. They came back the next play and tried to dominate on that next play. So I think that's a really good taking the kind of the characteristics from your coach. I think Coach Saban talks about that all the time, about how to overcome adversity. So I think when we had that tip ball interception, which wasn't Mac Jones' fault, I think our defense stepped up to the plate to get the ball back for us, but our offense came right back out on the field and really did a good job of recovery there. So I think that showed a lot of poise for our offensive team. Getting the ball out in space to our playmakers was really good in this game. We see John Mechie make plays, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith making plays, Miller Forstall made some good catches as well in the passing game. Now, Mac Jones really did a good job of passing the ball. I think he has now had 3 consecutive games where he's been over 400 yards passing. I think there's no other quarterback in Alabama history has done that well. So he needs to get credit as well, not only for passing the ball, but for getting us in the right plays and making sure that we ran the right run-pass options at times. And again, Najee Harris, he had the bulk of the load of running. A Georgia team that had held teams to 38 yards rushing. That was the average, 38 yards rushing. And I said last week on the podcast that I felt like Alabama would have more than 38 yards in the first quarter, and we had more than 38 yards in the first 5 minutes of the game. Najee Harris ends up with 152 yards rushing, which really showed that we imposed our will on the team. I love that when we run the ball, when we want to run the ball, we run the ball. When we want to gain 2 yards, we run the ball and gain those 2 yards. I think that shows something about our offense is different this year than it was last year. So overall review of this game, I think we had a good offensive scheme, we had a good offensive play calling, and our defense really improved. And that's why we come away with a victory of 41-24 over the Georgia Bulldogs. Well, in the second segment, we want to take a look at our standout players of the game. And Alabama had some really standout players in this game. And I think we have to look at our playmakers on offense first, and that has to be Devonta Smith is the first guy you go to. Devonta Smith has been a thorn in the side of the Georgia Bulldogs since he caught that 2nd and 26 pass for the national championship. It seems like he came out in this game and again had a great game. I mean, Mac Jones got him the ball in space. Mac Jones got him the ball in tight places. He again caught passes in the end zone with tiptoeing his toes down to get touchdowns. And we used him in movement around in formations and allowed him to get open against the safeties or the linebackers and for a touchdown as well. Devonta Smith ended up over 160 yards of pass catching. Had 160 yards in the game, I believe 167 to be exact. So he did a really fantastic job in those plays on offense. I think Devonta Smith is the guy that I would look for. If I'm Mac Jones and I need a pass to be caught, Devonta Smith is the guy I'm looking for in a clutch because he was clutch in this game. So Devonta Smith is one of my standout players of the game. You don't have to look very far than just his running mate in the wide receiver position, and that is Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle again had over 160 yards of catches in this game. Did a fantastic job. He ran after the catch so well in eluding defensive players. Got himself in position with his speed. The deep ball that he caught over 90 yards just showed his speed. I think one of the things you see in the NFL scouts when they look at him is he has the ability to really extend the defense. And the players, the caliber of players that Georgia had on defense were good, 5-star players, but they couldn't keep up with the speed of Jalen Waddle. So he is another of my standout players of the game. On offense as well, we stay on the offensive side of the ball. I think you have to give credit to Mac Jones. Third straight game of over 400 yards passing. He did a great job in this game. I don't think he gets enough credit. He's not really being talked about in the around the nation in any of your big leading positions. This week he didn't even win the player of the game for the national offensive player of the game. I think the quarterback from Memphis did. So he's not getting a lot of the national recognition, but he is doing a really good job. Now you say he's got 400 yards against Texas A&M, 400 yards against other teams like Missouri. What can he do it against the best defense? Well, this was the best defense in the SEC, we were told. It's the best defense in the nation, we were told. And yet he came out and he continued to put up big numbers against the biggest, the best of the defense that Georgia had to offer. And so I think it's time that we give Mac Jones credit for what he's doing. So on offense, Mac Jones, Jalen Waddle, and Devonta Smith really stood out in this game. Another player I think we have to give some credit to, which I think was a big turning point in the game, is Will Reichard. Will Reichard is perfect kicking the ball for Alabama on extra points and field goals. And I think one of the biggest things in this game was the last play before the half. You know, Georgia goes down and they get the ball and they go down, and I believe it takes them less than 20 seconds or 30 seconds or so to go down and score on their 2 minute offense at the end of the game. They got 23 seconds left when they score, and they get a score for a touchdown and go up 24-17, and they get the ball back in the second half. But then Alabama comes out with 23 seconds remaining on the clock and gets in a position to make or to attempt a long field goal. But folks, in the past, if you're listening to this podcast and you can truthfully say that you were completely confident that we were going to make a 52-yard field goal, then I think I'd want to talk to you about that. Because in the past, we've had really, really difficulty in making long field goals and being consistently making any kind of field goals. But this year, Will Reichard, coming back from an injury, he goes in, stands in, and kicks a 52-yard field goal to end the first half. And Alabama goes down 24-20. To me, I think that's the turning point in this game. I think that gave Alabama the momentum going in at halftime. Even though Georgia was going to get the ball, I think the defense was excited that they get to come out in the second half and stop Georgia and get the ball back for Alabama. And that's what flipped the ability of Alabama to go back up. You know, they come back out in the second half. They flip the field position on us, and we get the ball down around the 10-yard line, and immediately we get a 90-yard bomb touchdown from Mac Jones to Jalen Waddle, and we go up 27-24, and we never look back. But I think you have to give Will Reichard some credit. He made the field goal under pressure at 52 yards. He goes in at halftime with a momentum, and I believe if you watch that game, you see him going off the field at halftime. Everyone, we got offensive players, defensive players, coaches, everybody congratulated. Hey, we got a kicker that just kicked it in for 52 yards. So Will Reichard is also one of my standout players of the game. Well, let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. Well, you know, one of my favorite players on the Alabama defense has to be Christian Barmore. I've talked about him forever, so he's one of my standout players for this game. Was a little injured in the at the first of the season, and I think he's just now coming into his own, getting back into playing shape. But he started this game, and one of the reasons we didn't know going in, but LeBron Ray was out with an elbow injury, so he didn't get to play in this game. And Christian Barmore was called on to play more. Him and DJ Dale were called on to play more in this game. And I think he did a fantastic job of pushing the pocket and getting his hands up, reviewing the film, and knew to get your hands up and you can bat some of those balls down. He had a strip sack where he didn't recover the fumble, but he stripped the ball out and caused a sack on the quarterback. He stopped the run. He was an integral part of the frontline defense of stopping the run. Their leading rushers, Amir White, only had 57 yards in this game. 57 yards of rushing by Zamir White. So I think that we did a good job, and Christian Barmore was really good. Now, he did have a bonehead play, we call them, or just a play where he calls them to be able to extend the drive, and he jumped off sides. He's got to do more things in the mental part of the game to be more disciplined than that. So he can't continue to make mistakes like that. But he's a standout player of the game because of the way he affected the passing game with his hands, rushing the quarterback and getting the strip sack and stopping the run. So Christian Barmore is one of my defensive standout players of this game. The other defensive standout player has to be Patrick Surtain. We don't talk about him a lot because the targets that he goes to, they aren't targeting him a lot. I think he really did a great job of shutting down some of Georgia's big play receivers like George Pickens and others. I think he did a good job of being able to knock balls away, and the corner play between him and Josh Jobe on either side of the ball really was good. But I think Patrick Surtain doesn't get a lot of credit because he's not targeted a lot because his man is covered most of the time. So my standout players of the game on defense, Christian Barmore and Patrick Surtain. So just to review, standout players from the Georgia game are Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, and Mac Jones on offense, Will Reichard, our specialist, and then Christian Barmore and Patrick Surtain on defense. Well, we're going to now in the third segment, going to take a preview of the upcoming game against the University of Tennessee. That's right, we come in, it's actually going to be the fourth Saturday in October. We're going to make that trip to Knoxville, and Alabama gets to go on the road and to play. It's probably going to be a great weather. It looks like projecting great weather, great football weather there on Saturday. So it's going to be a 2:30 kickoff, again, I believe, on CBS. So Alabama, I believe, will be ready to go into Knoxville and play this game. What does Alabama need to do in this game against Tennessee? Well, Tennessee's coming off of one of their worst losses. Were they looking ahead to Alabama? Maybe. Or was Kentucky just doing a good job of thwarting? I think Alabama is going to watch the film of that Kentucky game, and we're going to try to see the off defense to go in and make some adjustments in the Tennessee to put some pressure on the quarterback. One thing that Kentucky showed was you put pressure on the quarterback, then the Garantano is going to make some mistakes throwing the ball, which will lead to some big plays. In the Kentucky game, he had 2 pick six to start the game, put themselves behind the 8 ball early. So if Alabama can pressure the quarterback and play good man-to-man press coverage and or mix it up with some zone, I really believe giving Garantano a new look will help get some picks in this game. So if we can pressure the quarterback and get him to outside the pocket, contain his running, but get him to have to throw the ball downfield while he's under pressure, I think it bodes well for the Alabama defense. Another thing we need to do on defense is to stop the run. Tennessee likes to pound the ball in and to run and work on the play action passing game. So if we can stop the run and force them into a passing team, and then cover with our backs, defensive backs in a man combo zone, and I think it will do good against Tennessee. Tennessee is going to come out wanting to beat Alabama. They haven't beat Alabama in forever. Jeremy Pruitt wants to be the first Nick Saban assistant coach to return and beat him, and he's the 4th one in a long line of here that's lined up to try to beat him. But I think if Alabama can go into this game and survive the opening on the road drives from Tennessee, I really believe Alabama will have an opportunity to impose their will on this Tennessee team. So what do we need to do on offense? I think we need to do a little bit of the same thing we did against Georgia, and that is use some motion with our playmakers such as Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle, put them in matchups against the Tennessee defensive backs that they can win one-on-one, and Mac Jones just has to play within himself and get the ball to the playmakers. I think we do that by setting that up with running the ball, and Najee Harris has been on a tear running the ball lately. He had 152 yards against Georgia, a defense that was only giving up 38 yards a game to other teams. He had over 200 yards rushing against Ole Miss. So I think we have to continue that, go into the game against Tennessee, run the ball to set up the play action passes. And if we do that, I think one thing that I've seen on tape against Tennessee is they're very athletic. They play with a lot of emotion, just like their head coach, Jeremy Pruitt, with a lot of emotion. And on defense, they do that. Well, what do you do when you have a team that plays with a lot of emotion, a lot of athleticism on defense? What you need to do is use that against them. And I believe Alabama can do that to get them into over-pursuing and then go back on the backside with traps and runs to the opposite side, and also get them to over the pursue with pass plays to one side and then go back to the other side with these fast wideouts. So I think after watching film, I think Alabama is going to go into this and they're going to take advantage of Tennessee's defense by getting them to over pursue and do some misdirection. You might see some reverses. You might see some handoffs to the wide receivers on end arounds. You may see some throwbacks to the opposite side. And I think you're going to see some cutbacks by Najee Harris that will have some good yards in this game. So I think overall Alabama goes into Knoxville and has a great game against Tennessee. I think Alabama comes out the victor 52-21. Well, this has been the DC Capstone Report. We thank you all for listening to us each week. If you will, go and like our Facebook page, the DC Capstone Report Facebook page. Also, you can follow us on Twitter at DavidCott50. That's DavidCot50. And you can check out some of Lance's websites where you can get some great pictures at freelancepictures.com and rolltidebama.com. Well, until next week, this is DC with the DC Capstone Report signing off and saying to big roll tide to everyone.